We are continuing with the 7 factors of enlightenment. We covered the first 4, and there's a certain strategy in doing that. If you've been here before on retreats, you may recall that I advised the first 3 days, the first 72 hours, more or less, to stay on the energy side of things, that if you attempt to get into deeper, stiller states too soon, you usually end up just getting dull and drowsy. And that is why the first 4 factors of the 7 factors are more on the energetic side of things. And you'll see the order of the jhanas as well, that the first 2 jhanas are particularly infused with energy and joy. It's hard to get a shortcut to deep stillness. It's much better to go through the process of raising energy, making sure that you have enough and that your mind is bright enough and in the right mood, enjoyment, before you attempt to find stillness. You notice the first 2 factors, mindfulness and investigation of Dhamma, are also active. So the first 4 are active. That is mindfulness, Dhamma Vichaya, investigation of Dhamma, Virya, energy, and joy, which is a sparkly kind of emotion. This is the standard advice for any of the longer retreats that I give, is to stay in those first 4 active elements. But now you've been here for a while, and you're getting into the point. You've adjusted to the situation, feel present here, you're familiar with things. And we happen to be in a good time of year. It's a fresh time of year. Sometimes in the monasteries in the tropics, it can be wiltingly hot and humid. It's very hard to keep the energy up. So there are certain advantages to being in a godforsaken iceberg of a country. It has its bracing effects on one. So by the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm referring to Canada. A couple of things are conducive to the next factor, which is passaddhi. It is tranquility. And there's little lists of things that support that. One of them is good food. So I think you're having good food here. Plentiful and a variety of things. So food is not ignored in Dhamma, even for monks. The right kind of food that's supportive of the practice is one of the factors which supports the movement towards this tranquility, the 5th factor of the 7 factors. Another one is avoiding problematic people, difficult company, violent people, etc. So you're in this isolated monastery, everybody's on their best behavior, and it's orderly and serene. So that's another supportive factor of the motion towards this tranquility. So the third idea is positive friendship and association. So you're also with people who meditate, and you're with the monks, and people who are interested in sharing the Dhamma and supporting the practice. So there's a contact experience being around people, as I'm sure you know, if you're in the midst of difficult, problematic people, untrustworthy or violent, your whole system is set on alarm. And if you're with people who you trust and who are concerned for your well-being, not just neutral, but actually care for you, then that also is a beautiful experience. And that's why we seek out these people. We end up calling them friends. So that's also support of this, because you can relax. You can afford to be tranquil. You don't have to be on high alert, hoping that nobody breaks in the middle of the night or steals something from you. So this is some of the conditions which are conducive to this passaddhi. And the passaddhi, tranquility, is the transition from this energy joy to concentration. So it's not abrupt. It's not suddenly you're very joyful and then into a deep state of concentration. It's this transition from joy and energy to serenity. And that puts you on the doorstep of Samadhi. There is a Pali word that is used in the commentaries, upachara samadhi. And it's curious because you don't really find it in the suttas, you find it in the commentaries. But I think this is their substitute for this passaddhi. The passaddhi occurs in a few places. It occurs in the Anapanasati Sutta, slight variations on the word, but it is this calming and tranquilizing the body and the mind starts to occur in the second tetrad of the mindfulness of breathing sutta, the Anapanasati Sutta. In that sutta, he's getting your attention. He's a great teacher. He starts with something very basic. He asks you to note whether your breath is long or short. Simple thing, catching your attention. And then experiencing the entire duration of the breath. By the way, that's my interpretation. There are several interpretations of this. One is that you become aware of the entire body, your physical body, whereas I tend to favor the idea, which is explained in the commentaries and is quite mainstream sort of interpretation, that after paying attention to whether your breath is long or short, then you move on to the experience of knowing and being aware of the entire duration of the out-breath and the entire duration of the in-breath. And this is different than just knowing whether it was a short or long. That can be grasped in a very short period of time. Short attention. You can know whether you took a long breath or a short breath. But then the demand goes up on your attention. Can you be fully aware of every moment of the entire in-breath and exhalation? And that's a much higher demand on your attention. Now he has your attention, or hopefully, because you can spend years with this and not get to the state where you can actually completely be with the breath for that entire duration. But if you do, then he focuses, now how do you feel? And there's an encouragement to induce a sense of, to raise the emotions, gladden the mind, to feel joy and to feel gladness, to feel ease in the body. And then as you come to the end of that tetrad, you get this passaddhi, this now tranquilizing the mind and the body, now tranquilizing it. So you're 8 steps in. That tranquilization is the 5th factor of the 7 factors of enlightenment, passaddhi. So this is also, to skillfully do this, be highly aware of this in your sittings. So you might also, when you do this, look at how you feel. What's your time of day? People are different. There are night owls, and then there are morning people who are very cheerful in the morning. They're as cheerful as bird song at 5 o'clock in the morning there. And others, not so much. They like to stay up till 2 and get up later. But you need to be aware of your natural rhythm. And are you a morning meditator? Is that the best time for you? Or are you drowsy? And then the afternoon is good for you. Or are you drowsy in the afternoon? Or maybe you're an evening person and, in fact, like to sit late. You want to pick your best time that's to your biorhythm and try to maximize the supportive conditions. So if you're not an afternoon person, you find yourself dull in the afternoon, then that's the time for walking meditation, raising energy, lightening up the mood, maybe even repeating some, or chanting, or in the woods, chanting to yourself. These kind of things that refresh you. And if you're quite energized in the morning, that's the time then to have a good long sit, because you have almost 3-hour period. Now that you're into the third, fourth, well, tomorrow will be the fourth day, so see if you can maintain the sitting for longer periods of time. If it's conducive to your bodily rhythms, and see if you can graduate from this light, energized feeling to a more serene feeling. And the mind can resist this for quite a while. So sometimes you just have to say, well, I'm going to remain on the mat or at the mat for 2 hours, not just 45 minutes, because the mind will resist. It doesn't mean that you have to sit in exactly one posture, half lotus or something like this. You can change postures. When it becomes painful or unpleasant, you can change postures. You can also just stand up and refresh yourself, just a little swaying from side to side, but don't move around too much. Don't go for a walk, because the mind is just resisting. And if you haven't tried to sit past an hour before, you may think, well, I sat for an hour, that's it for me. Sometimes it's very deceptive. The mind will resist you until it realizes that you're not giving up. So sometimes after 90 minutes, you think nothing's going to happen, and then the mind drops in, and everything becomes very easy. We would like to learn to do it faster. That's kind of the next exercise. But sometimes you just have to persist for a couple of hours. And the mind might surrender and drop into this next state. And your body, before that, your body might feel quite painful and uncomfortable. But the mind then drops, and then you feel the pains go away. Another side effect of this is that the body starts to sit up by itself. I feel like the characteristic feeling is that you're getting into a hot tub or something like this, or salt water up to your neck, and you feel like the body is suspended, or the gravitational forces are lightened up. If your mind, of course, your body doesn't sit up by itself. You can be an Olympic athlete, and you still you come to a meditation retreat, you'll see somebody who's trained athletically, they'll be slumping, they can't keep their head up. They'll be nodding, because it's not your body that keeps your head up, it's your mind. So when the mind is engaged, fully engaged, the body just has a sense of lightness. So this is where we talked to the previous group about Iddhipadas, powers. And one of the types of things you hear in spiritual circles is kind of levitation kind of thing. But I would suggest, without the drama of floating off the floor, that the real levitation is simply that the body feels weightless. it feels weightless. The scale, your bathroom scale, doesn't tell you that, but you'd swear that you only weighed a few pounds. This happens, of course, when you're really interested in something. When your attention is taken up, you forget that your body is not a problem. You're interested, you're watching out the window and some kids are playing and you're waving to somebody and you don't have a body then. It's very light. You'll see the posture of people when their attention is caught and something's interesting. In the football stadiums, they're up like this. They don't have a body. Attention, when it's focused, is experienced as a whole, as a bodily experience as well. So it's the body falls into the background, the aches and pains go away, and it feels light. And so that's something you're going to watch for as well in this. And sometimes, it'll resist. So the fact that you're feeling heavy and nodding and so forth, don't give up. Means you need to raise energy, and the mind is resisting. But eventually it knows that here's where you're going to be. You might as well pay attention. Be here. Be with the breath. Or if you're practicing metta, loving kindness, or other types of samadhi practices, you can get these effects as well by analysis, in just investigating Dhamma. It can get very interesting. You're just going over, okay, what are the 7 factors? How does that work? And Dhamma reflections, investigating Dhamma, and you'll find that half an hour has gone by. Suddenly it's lunchtime. So we see that if you're reading a really good book, perhaps in bed. Decided to read a little bit of this favorite book you've been keeping beside your bed, but you must get to sleep before midnight for sure because you got to work tomorrow. But then it's 1:00 and just one more chapter. Time means nothing. Even your arms are not tired, but you've been holding the book. They should be, but they're not. So the close connection between the mind and the body, if you have a really nice bed and covers and all of this kind of stuff, but you're worried and you can't sleep, you can't spend more than 15 minutes on one side. You got to turn to the other. If it's uncomfortable, you turn to the other side, and how can it be? You spent $3,000 on this bed. How is it that you can't, that it's uncomfortable? It's not the bed. It's your mind that's uncomfortable. And when your mind's uncomfortable, your body's uncomfortable. But then the phone rings. Turns out you did win the lottery after all. And off you go to sleep. You'll spend 5 hours just in that one posture. So, a lot of relationship between the body and the mind. So if you can keep this in mind for your sitting practice from now to the end, you might endeavor, if the afternoon is your best time, stretch out the sittings. If morning is the best time, stretch out the sitting. Or even after the talk, some of you are more in the night owl kind of thing. Go ahead and spend some time in the sala in the evening. You got to maximize every possibility for you. It's a custom-made practice. There isn't one size fits all. There is no magic. There's no silver bullet, a single technique that works for everybody. This is why the Pali Canon is 45 volumes rather than one slender booklet of 7 pages. It's immense because there's a huge range of personalities and types of consciousness and people. And they benefit at different times in their life by different practices, by different circumstances, different times of the year, different ages. So that's getting to know yourself, understanding your structure. You're not being just forced into a conformist kind of idea. There are lots of retreats like that where it's absolutely regulated, bells going off, when to walk, when to sit, and so forth. But you don't see that so much at all, really, in the time of the Buddha. It's much more flexible. So try to contemplate that and ask yourself, what are my needs? And use your own wisdom. So say if you get a bad night's sleep, you're going to be drowsy in the morning. It may not be the right time to sit, even though that you're usually a morning person, but something happened at night and you couldn't get any sleep, so that would be time to go for a walk, get some light in the eyes. Might even be a time to have a nap. Catch up a little bit, and then maybe the afternoon is better for you. Another element is hydration as well. Sometimes after just drinking a glass of water, you feel much more awake. It can help. So tranquility is number 5, and then we're moving towards Samadhi, the true Samadhi. And this is a supernormal condition of the mind. And one should not underestimate what it is. It's a noble endeavor, and many people will not achieve it. But it's nice to know that there is such a thing, that the mind can do this. It's not, you'll never hear it taught at all in school or university or anything like that. It's a type of use of the mind is simply not spoken of. And in many sort of yoga, mindfulness things, they don't speak of it at all either. And some of the Vipassana stuff, they don't speak of but this is Samadhi. And it's obviously important. Concentration is mentioned 4 times in the 37. The Samadhi occurs in the Eightfold Path, occurs in the 7 factors. And so concentration is also in the 5 faculties and the 5 powers. So this is very important to realization. And if you don't make it to realization, meaning realization is actually a stage of enlightenment, it's still, if you can get this to some degree, and by the way, so if you're in a lay life, you might actually get this, you might get Samadhi, perhaps especially on a retreat, and then you can bring it back home, but you shouldn't be too concerned because it's quite likely that due to circumstances, the demands of life out there, that it will slip away or be difficult to get or maintain. That's not, you shouldn't be too disappointed about that. It's a very special practice. It takes a lot of careful arranging of your life in order to be able to get to it. And I'm speaking generally. There might be people in the hall here who actually have great sort of capacity in that direction. We shouldn't just presume anything. There's people in this room with all kinds of talents or capacities that may be exceptional. So it's possible that some of you are inclined towards this Samadhi. And if you can get it, it's a very beautiful thing. It changes the way you think about life, really. And all you really need is a quiet room. And you get great satisfaction. It takes away the problem of existence. It solves a lot of issues, mostly by dissolving them, because most of the issues we have are just the excessive functioning of the mind. We create worries and anxieties about the future and preoccupations with the past. It's the way our mind is working. We do that, and we believe it. It just seems very real. It's my life. It is the way things are. But if you can get into this samadhi, that all goes away. It just doesn't seem to have any meaning. The past, the future, not a problem. It's not that you're sort of dwelling in the present so much. It's just that the difficult emotions, the existential worries are gone. One feels very like can't remember what the problem was. There aren't any. So it's and it's not a heavy experience either, although it can be a very experience which you don't want to come out of. You don't want to move for a while. It's kind of like, that delicious experience of early morning in bed. You wake up, but you pull the covers up nicely. Just want to spend a few more minutes, push the snooze button. So, and that's a good thing that Buddha is encouraging you. If you do have time in your life for this. I mean, we can't all just sit quietly in a room. There's stuff to do. But if you have that time, it's very enjoyable, and it just once you have the experience of all of this mild kind of anxiety that is the way ordinary life is, that when it goes away, it's just shockingly in your face realization that it's just a side effect of the way you think. All of that stuff is just how you're thinking. And it's not real. What's real is how you feel. And if you feel this way, then reality is different. You can, of course, experiment with this just if you can get deeper. And mostly it's setting up the preparatory conditions for it. Same as passaddhi. I talked about the few factors, the right kind of food, the right kind of companionship, the weather, good weather for it. Like if it's sweltering and humid or freezing, those are problems. The right temperature, the right fresh air, the right humidity, proper amount of food, and good companionship, maybe having listened to some talks, being in the right mood for it, not being concerned about the time. I got to run for the office, but I got 20 minutes to get into jhana, but then I got to move, and doesn't work that way. So this is the kind of, you develop the skill by understanding the preliminaries like this and paying a lot of attention. So this is the kind of instructions they give you in the commentaries as well, that focus on the map to it, the preliminaries, how you set up the preliminary conditions so that you can get to it. This is the kind of advice you get for people who can't sleep and so forth. The first thing is, well, do you have enough fresh air in the room? What's the condition of your bed? Did you just watch a horror movie before you went to bed? Are you staring at the blue screen too late? Did you just finish off a bag of nachos at 11 o'clock at night? Or was it cheese doodles? I forget now. Anyway, this kind of stuff, so that if you take care of those things, then the issues of sleep may go away, and you may be able to get a good night's sleep, some exercise, things like that. So this is the same, developing these supernormal mental states, samadhi, is that you want to give yourself all the advantages, and the Buddha is endlessly on about this, This is why he sets up the Sangha. It's like he realizes that you need a whole structure of support. And if people want to do very special intents or to devote their life to this, he engineers a Sangha, how you live, the buildings you live in, when and how you eat, what the clothes you wear, the shaving of the head, the relationship to the other monastics around you, teachers, all of this stuff to give you optimal support for the development of these. And so in the lay life as well, that you maximize your conditions. You have a much larger variety of situations in the lay life. The Buddha is not trying to really control it. He just gives you basically 5 precepts. There's no special clothing or anything like this. So it gives you a lot of flexibility. He realizes some people got 15 kids, and other people are, a bachelor living in a wealthy bachelor or something like that. You're from royalty or a huge variety of situations. But he gives you sort of the skeleton of how to maximize the situation for the arrival of this Samadhi, and to tell you about it in detail and give you exercises that can lead to that Samadhi. There are 4 levels of this, and one should probably stay fairly humble about this. I hear people come and tell me they got the 4th jhana, now what should I do? Like, really? You did a quadruple back flip from the 10-meter board? Really? No, I don't think you did. I think you have no idea what you're talking about. This is obviously absolutely supernormal, extraordinary attainment. So one should be kind of maybe aspiring to the 1st or 2nd jhana, perhaps. That would be quite an accomplishment. And that's enough to have a basis for enlightenment experiences as well. It changes the way you experience life. And some of these characteristics are, a reduction of your involvement in the melodrama, a subsiding, more or less a disappointment or a subsiding of interest in the kind of shallower activities. This is called nibbida. And relinquishment, not so grasping, not so motivated by the stuff and the situations. Quieting of that and withdrawal. It's not on your mind so much, etc. So these are the side effects of this meditation. And these are, the ordinary dialogue in the world is all about celebrating those things and is very wary of any loss of interest in those kind of things. But actually the spiritual practice inclines to a loss of interest in those things, but not to depression. It is just it's just growing. It's maturity is what it is. It's emotional maturity. And the Samadhi experience aids that. Without trying even, it just inclines you that way. The Buddha does say this very beautiful thing, that one who has Samadhi need not concern themselves so much with wisdom. Wisdom naturally rises and swells out of Samadhi. The way you think and approach things will change automatically because of Samadhi. He says, there is no need to wish, may wisdom arise. Wisdom naturally rises and swells out of Samadhi. This last factor, the 7th factor, is equanimity, and it is the total characteristic of the fourth jhana, which again, that's a very high standard to reach for. It's the equanimity that rises in the fourth jhana is, your physiology and everything is shutting down. You're hardly breathing at that point. So this is super normal. It's not something you need. It might be for monks, maybe a layperson who really has, a couple of years to do nothing but meditate or something like this. Even monks, hard to find right circumstances for cultivation of that depth of jhana, because you really can't be having too many hobbies and doing that. So it's like hobby-free, distraction-free, ideal monastery, hermitage type of thing, maybe all day, all night, practicing. So, yeah, it's not, you take a weekend course, get the fourth jhana, equanimity is there. But there is another kind of equanimity, which is also the seventh factor, and that is the equanimity that you bring into ordinary life. And that is, balance. You're not swept off your feet by situations, the change around you. A lot of people are not, somehow strangely not aware that the surface of life is moving. You're on something like a pair of skis or a surfboard. It's a moving surface. People are inclined to think they're on a steady platform, but that's not the way life is. It's sweeping, it's moving all the time. This is the nature of time and place. Everything is moving all the time. The situation is changing at every moment. And when you forget that, you set yourself up for shocks, disappointments. And you invest heavily into stabilizing the situation, but you can't stabilize the situation. It's not possible. So the Buddha is asking you to turn towards that. He says, face that reality and don't try to invest your happiness in some form of stabilizing and security in that situation, because it's not possible, and you'll set yourself up for problems and difficulties. At first, you don't want to hear it. And it's not about being indifferent or irresponsible either. It's just allowing yourself to see the big picture. This is the way life is. Very uncertain, very, very unpredictable, so many variations possible, that I need to stay light. I need to stay capable of reacting. What are the kind of things that could happen? You go through, of course, the Buddha's encouraging you to do the 5 reflections every day. Illness, aging, death, loss, responsibility for your thought, speech, and action. Not doing things that you regret. Saying this is the proper thing to reflect on during the day. Stay in touch with reality. Stay there. Rehearse it. Not just once, but, throughout the day, a few times in the day, recall the reality of the situation. One winter retreat here, we were just getting into it. I think it was, I forget the year, 2004 or something like this. It was looking forward to the winter retreat, and we get an email or news that some sort of giant tsunami had hit Southeast Asia, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and it was like, okay, and then the news kept coming and coming in, and it's like 250,000 people died in 10 minutes, and then the Sri Lankan Thai community wanted monks to come down to Vancouver to sort of give some sort of spiritual condolences to the situation. So I got jerked out of the winter retreat, end up down in Vancouver, and they had some people there in this theater. They rented a whole theater. I tried to raise some funds for the Sri Lankans and the Thais, and some of the people there were actually Canadians that were on the beach in Thailand. They survived the tsunami. They got swept away, and they told the story of how it happened, what was going on. And it was just, beautiful sunny air in the holidays, and then suddenly you're under 20 feet of muddy water, and you don't know which way is up. Just your world is turned upside down like that for millions of people, actually. How do you respond? So that's the situation we are always in, and this equanimity is the prime faculty of development for dealing with that in life. And you will feel much more relaxed and at ease because you are in touch with reality and the truth of how things are. And this is the seventh of the 7 factors to be developed constantly, and that is to reflect on the vagaries of life, the successes and failures, the praise and blame, good fortune, bad fortune, obscurity, and fame sometimes. And these kind of things fluctuate through your life, but this is what equanimity is to not lose your balance in the midst of these inevitable conditions. So that's a little wrap-up of the 7 factors. We have a few more talks to go, but I will be focusing mostly on the Eightfold Path. And the Eightfold Path is abundant, and a lot of the 37 requisites pack into the large trunk of the Eightfold Path. So I'll see if I can stuff them all in the next 3 talks. Yes.